Well, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. I am pastoral intern Colin Newharth, and welcome to Studying God's Word. So this week we are continuing in the Gospel of Mark, the 10th chapter, and we're going to be talking about one of Jesus's healing miracles, and we're going to be talking about Bartimaeus. Now, Bartimaeus was the son of Timaeus. And this is one of the more common healing miracles that we like to hear about. Literary speaking, these healing narratives usually come to it's where Jesus walks the walk and doesn't just talk the talk. So it's like Jesus says something or teaches something profound, and then he proves everybody who he is by healing somebody. And Bartimaeus is no exception. So here's where we're starting. We're starting at Mark chapter 10, the 46th verse. And so Jesus and his disciples were now just leaving Jericho. And this group of people accompanies Jesus. And being on a road to introduce Bartimaeus, who is a blind man, to us, it's very straightforward. He's unable to see. He's begging for money. Bartimaeus in this story is representing the poorest of the poor, the downtrodden of the most downtrodden, the oppressed of the most oppressed. And so Bartimaeus, we're on verse 47 now, he has heard that this is Jesus of Nazareth. And so he began to shout out and say, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." And we can kind of imagine where Bartimaeus is at in life, because in Roman society, Bartimaeus was blind. He was homeless. He was a beggar. When people had like disabilities or certain ailments in the Roman Empire, they were the lowest of the low because they were not useful for the economy. They did not have a useful spot on the social ladder. And so in 47, when Bartimaeus says, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me," that's a cry of desperation. That's a cry of desperation, and that's also a cry of faith, because that signals to Jesus that Bartimaeus knows something about him. Bartimaeus knows something about who Jesus is. And so many of those in the crowd around Jesus, they want to order Bartimaeus, be quiet, because of, again, the whole secret nature of who Jesus is. But that doesn't stop Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus is so desperate to get Jesus' attention that he doesn't care what the crowd is saying. And so he says, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus finally kind of perked up, and he said, "Call him here." And the crowd finally said to the blind man, okay, you got his attention. Take heart, get up. Jesus is calling you." And so we're in verse 50, and Bartimaeus, with excitement, he threw off his cloak, and he sprang up, and he went to Jesus. And so then Jesus asks him, he says, "What do you want me to do for you?" And Bartimaeus says to him, "My teacher, let me see again." Because Bartimaeus knows that if if he can see again, he can be a contributing member of society and potentially turn his life around. And so Jesus said to him, "Go, your faith has made you well." And immediately he gained his sight and followed him on that way. And so, like I said, this is a miracle that follows a teaching. And the inside scoop of this gospel is very much that of what does God's mercy look like? What does God's mercy feel like? How does God's mercy happen? And so there's different things at work here. For example, there's tension in this gospel because there's a crowd there, and the crowd here is more or less acting as a middleman of sorts, almost an obstacle for Bartimaeus, a blind man, a beggar, to access Jesus. But the crowd is not stopping him. The crowd only causes him to seek Jesus even more desperately. So Bartimaeus is not only asking for sight back, but Bartimaeus confesses his faith in Jesus before the healing because he is proclaiming, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Bartimaeus knows who he is and what he's doing. Bartimaeus is kind of a smart cookie here because compared to a lot of people, he knows who Jesus is and what Jesus is doing before Jesus dies on the cross. And Jesus, in saying the words, "Go, your faith has made you well," that's Jesus' approval of Bartimaeus' confession of faith. And so we encounter something. This miracle from the outwards can seem more insignificant from the outside, but really there is something huge going on here. It's interesting, to say the least. So this is portraying Bartimaeus as belonging to the lowest in the social structure. But let's talk about that cloak. So he ripped off his cloak. What that could represent, and what the cloak could represent, because it sounds like a minor detail. So throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. But also in Roman society, what you wore showed what social status you were. So this man, Bartimaeus, his cloak and him wearing his cloak represents him in his status and holding on to that tiny little bit of social power he may have. So what this represents, so the reason throwing off his cloak is so why it's mentioned in there is it's a representation of leaning in to God's mercy in Jesus Christ, because the man is throwing off every earthly power he has and to engage in the power of Jesus Christ. And so that is one function of it, and that is a representation of Bartimaeus coming into discipleship with Jesus Christ. So the big thing that we can unpack in this text here is what are the things that we can throw off, or that we can do away with, or that we should set aside in order to focus on our life as a beloved child of God, as our calling as a beloved child of God, and how can we continue to rejuvenate our relationship with God in Jesus Christ. That's the overall picture. When are those times in our lives that we say, that we cry out to Jesus, have mercy on me? When are those times? And it's all different for everyone, because it would be boring if we all had the same answer to that. So I can't answer that question for you. But when are those times when you want to cry out to Jesus, have mercy on me? Enough is enough. And when are those times when you felt that response of, your faith has made you well? I'm sure there are countless times for each of us. And that is what is happening between Jesus and the blind man now seeing, known as Bartimaeus. Well, everybody, grace and peace to you on this day. Thank you for joining me. It's always a pleasure to bring you these studies online. And here's wishing many blessings to you and yours on this lovely Saturday. Take care, everyone. God bless.